power to transform, the ability to take a simple idea and execute it on a grand scale, the patient implementation of truly remarkable strategies, and all of this on your own terms. Now these are the makings of a unicorn, a startup that has hit that exclusive billion-dollar valuation. And today we're going to discover one startup that, if investors and big venture capitalists are to be believed, is well on its way to joining that elusive unicorn club. This is Azure Power, a startup that is making strong inroads in India's solar energy sector and taking on fierce competition with the boldness that only a successful startup can show. This startup is all about power.
Power created from renewable sources of energy has the potential to change millions of lives. Smart cities, which can meet the demands of its citizens effectively and responsibly, may just be within our grasp as some gladiators decided to carve out a niche for themselves and create impact that transforms how we use energy. This is a remarkable story of engineering, a tale of an endeavor to find low-cost power solutions to meet rising expectations. And this startup is looking right at the sun. Solar energy is its solution to our problems.
2009, there was a 50 megawatt program announced. Today, the Indian government has committed to 100,000 megawatts of solar power. So you can imagine how long we've come from when I started the business.
Calling this founder's company a business would be too simplistic. This man set up Azure Power, a leading solar service provider in India, in 2007, and there was no looking back. Today, his startup is being pegged as the next big unicorn out of India's startup belly by most keen investors. Meet Inderpreet Wadhwa. With over 2 decades of experience in technology and infrastructural businesses, Inderpreet evidently lacks the nervous chaos we have come to associate most founders with. He is now scaling up, and how. But before we decode his success mantra, we want to know: is the regulatory framework for a solar power startup well structured in India? India's solar energy sector is a new space for startups, with Azure Power leading the game. What has been Azure Power's strategy? What kind of impact has the startup created in the space?
I thought about creating a business that would create jobs in rural India. So those jobs will then give cash flows to rural families. And when you have a cash flow in those families, then they don't need to migrate to the cities and struggle. So I think the combination of the opportunity to develop policy for solar and to build solar farms in parts of India where there is very little employment opportunities seemed very, very attractive to me, and I took the plunge to start this business.
Inderpreet has been successful in implementing his strategy, as the company's current portfolio boasts of 804 megawatts in 14 states in India under various stages, out of which 270 plus megawatts is already operational. And one big notch on his belt is that Azure Power commissioned the largest solar plant in Jodhpur.
That the opportunity for energy in India is so large. I mean, we are talking about 100 gigawatts of solar today, but on a growth standpoint, to electrify every household in India, we have to build hundreds of gigawatts of power in the coming year. Somebody once told me that building a company is like running a marathon and not a sprint. So if you are looking to flip something around in 2 to 3 years' time, you will not be able to build a big business.
One look around the Azure Power office and you can see the achievements of the startup, extolling its founder, of course. In the years since its inception, this company, which may just have left the startup tag behind, has used its engineering, procurement, and construction expertise to sell the dream in India, the dream of solar power. But we still have some questions for the founder.
How many solar plants do you have currently, and do you plan to scale up from this? And what are the sectors that you supply power to?
In terms of projects, we have close to 300 megawatts that are running in 14 different states. In terms of scale-up plan, our growth has been phenomenal in the last 5 years. Our CAGR runs over 100%. so you can get a sense of where we are and where we plan to go. For the coming year, our target is to build another 400 to 500 megawatts of new projects, again in multiple states. In terms of our customer base, we have 3 sets of customers. The first is central government. So we do long-term contracts with NTPC, Solar Energy Corporation of India, and then they in turn sell power to any state that they have a back-to-back agreement with. Then we also participate in auctions at the state level, where we decide which states have a good credit, a good offtake, good payment track record, and we work with them and then sell power to them on long-term contracts. And the third segment that we are active is industrial and commercial, shopping malls, office spaces, warehouses, storage warehouses, hotels. We are able to give them savings from day one because we do not require any upfront capital investment from any of our customers. They only pay for the power they consume, which is a very powerful model that we have developed.
But of course, there are some very big players in this sector. There are startups who are also entering this sector. And then, of course, those who've been ruling the roost forever. There's Reliance, there's Adani. So how do you really stand up against them? Or do you think Azure Power has created its own niche by now?
I think we would definitely be interested in that segment. But right now, most of our customers are distribution companies around the country and private, industrial and commercial users. The challenge we see on residential solar is that we need a very well developed credit system in that space for us to be able to take a long-term payment risk at the individual level.
Now, the energy sector in India is a very new space for startups to enter, and it's of course led by Azure Power. What has your strategy been so far?
I think very simple strategy. I think I believe Moore's law squarely applies to solar photovoltaics because the underlying technology you use are semiconductors. So I think the easiest analogy I can give you is computing technology. So if you can think of 30 years ago, only large corporations could have access to computers that would fill a room like this. The same computing is now possible on your smartphone at fraction of the cost and much faster speed. It's the same technology every year. Solar will get cheaper, faster and more efficient. And with that theory, if you run your business with discipline and roll those innovations out in a very fast pace, you will continue to succeed.
Let's face it, we are either on the cusp of a revolution or a bubble that's going to burst. And all of this is led by India's glorified startups. But while the organized, somewhat glamorous startups born out of India's metropolitan cities do get plenty of media attention, there are still some great ideas in the smaller cities that often lie ignored. So we wonder, why are India's successful startups concentrated in Tier 1 cities? So we went and asked an expert whose own startup has just joined the exclusive Unicorn Club. What should startups in Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities do to join the bandwagon and enjoy the glory?
I would in fact like to maybe bring up a bigger picture first, is why there is a more concentration of startups in Silicon Valley versus India. So I think it is all about ecosystem, right? So if you look at in India, that ecosystem started in last few years and we have already seen a lot of world-class companies coming up. But yes, most of them are in a bigger cities like NCR or Bangalore or Hyderabad or Chennai or Mumbai. And the reason is because that is where the venture capitalists are, that is where the local talent is, that is where the law firms who help you, that is where the entire ecosystem is. So I feel that it's just a matter of timing. I'm hoping if we can have in this country more distributed availability of ecosystem, then this country will produce entrepreneurs in fact more exponentially.